Button works. And 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 4 live ticks, so that must mean that we are live.
Could be live.
So, welcome everybody to today's episode of Developers Let's Code. This is a series where we look at helping developers get started on AWS. So we are focusing on developers that are new to AWS and take you through various topics that we've seen people are interested in. So as always, if you have got different topics, please send us your requests and things, and we will start looking at those. Today, what we're doing is for this EMEA time zone version of the episode, I am having my co-host Darko Mezarosh again, although I still don't pronounce it correctly. I know the Z is the S is a little, it's Mezarosh a little bit more.
S is the S. S is the S sound, so Mezarosh.
Oh, Mezarosh.
Yes, exactly. Like mesa in Spanish, the table, right? Mezarosh. There we go.
Awesome. So he's going to help me out here to make the show a little bit more engaging and entertaining. Okay. And today we are taking a look at Amazon Lightsail. Let me just quickly open up my things here. So while I open this up, my console on the right, Darko, introduce yourself, please.
Yes, hi. As Kobus pronounced my name almost good, my name is Darko Mezarosh. I am a developer advocate, as same as my good friend here. And I am covering Central Eastern Europe and Russia. I'm based in Berlin, Germany. I'm originally from Serbia, and I've been working for AWS for 5 years in a couple of months. So I'm soon to get my yellow badge, which is a badge of honor at Amazon. and I do feel like I've been most of my life at AWS. So it is very fulfilling. So yeah, thank you for having me on, Kobus, once again.
Awesome. Okay, so let us quickly give an overview of what we'll be doing today. So we are going to be taking through Amazon Lightsail, which is a cloud service that allows you to very easily provision some infrastructure with also a very simplified pricing model. Because one of the things that we hear from some users is that because AWS has a lot of different services and each service has its own pricing model, sometimes it gets a little bit confusing when I start building with all these Lego blocks and figuring out how the pricing would work. So let us jump directly into the console. If I can just quickly share my screen here. We're going to jump to this one and share, and there we go. Let me just hide this little bit over here. Cool. Ooh. So what we have in front of us is the Lightsail console, and I specifically did not click on this because I want to have the proper first-time user experience in this account. I have not touched anything in this account, so any fun things that come up along the way, we will discuss and talk you through and actually show you how to use these. So
this is very different than the AWS console that you're used to, apparently. If it wasn't,
it looks a lot different.
Top, if there was no Amazon and AWS on top, you might mistake this for something else.
Awesome. So let's quickly first select save over here because I want to use English, and we can start with, I'll create something later. There's obviously a first-time user experience. Let's actually go through it and talk you through it. So what does it do? Well, it just takes, that didn't do anything. I would expect it to do something. Interesting. That would be something that I'll look into afterwards. But what we have now is this is the basic interface. Now, like I said, is that this is a simplified, easy to use cloud platform. So the whole point here is that how do we do things easily and preferably quickly, and also how do we have simplified costs. So let's quickly just increase the size of here a little bit. So what we can see over here is that I can go ahead and create an instance over here. And what we also see is the first section is the instance location. And you can see here, if I click on change, you can see that there is a list of locations that I can use. So this means I can pick where in the world do I want to spin up my instance, which is useful if you want something close to you.
Okay. But so this is basically running on AWS. I mean, I guess it is, right? But
yes.
So we do have a choice of regions. Oh, we can also change. I see this. We can also change availability zones.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
So the first interesting point you'll notice over here is that you don't see the 24 regions that we currently have got live worldwide. Yeah. It's only a subset of those. So that's the first difference between other AWS services and Lightsail, is that it's only available at this account at least in 13 regions. But I mean, as you can see, it's spread out across the world quite nicely already. Okay. So the first thing you would have to do when you start thinking about what you want to launch is like where you want to launch it. So this is where you would select that. We will get back to the actual launching and the availability zone in a little bit. Then what you have to do is you pick your operating system. Is it Linux or is it going to be Windows?
Okay.
Those are your two main options. And you'll notice there that the blueprint doesn't specify which Linux flavor, because remember, this is a simplified version. We're trying to keep it simple for you. Then what you can see down here is that when you get to the actual OS portion only, now you can pick your Linux flavor if you don't want to do just a specific version of Linux, or you can over here just pick the pre-built ones with applications pre-installed. So things here that should be familiar to people that have built things is WordPress. You can do WordPress multi-site. There's a basic LAMP stack, mean stack, Magento, which I know a lot of people use for e-commerce sites, just a basic Engine site, etc. So you can see there are quite a lot of options available to you over here. You can see the details specifically about that image that you want to launch. And then you have got some additional configuration down here. But the important part that I want to get to, let me just close that, is the actual pricing. So
this is very interesting.
So this is where the pricing is going to happen. So what you can see over here is that when you pick your server, you see a monthly rate.
Yeah.
And unlike other AWS services now, this monthly rate is also billed incrementally as it's running, but it works out to $3.50 per month if you run the specific server for a whole month. Right. And here you can see each one of these has got a very defined list of exactly the properties. So 0.5 gig of RAM, 1 virtual CPU, 20 gigs of storage, and 520 gigs of transfer. And you can pick whichever one you want. And also you can pick, depending on how you want to search for instances, you can pick processing, storage, transfer, etc., the values, and see what it is that you want.
This really does make it much clearer. So one of the comments I have from people, especially people new to AWS, if they want to run something simple like a WordPress site, is the first comment I get is like, how can I know how much does it all cost? Because costs can be complicated on AWS, right? With all the EC2 costs and transfer costs and storage costs. And this seems very simple. We have price per month, how much RAM, how much processing or CPUs we get, how much storage, and how much transfer we get. So, and this is basically the fixed or the maximum you should be charged per month for this instance type. So I think for people who are struggling with understanding the costs of running a server on AWS, if you want something simple, this is very straightforward. And I think it's the cheapest thing you can run. The $3.5 a month.
Yeah, I think so. There might be like the T3 Nano might be a little bit cheaper per month if you work out the per hour cost, but this is probably one of the cheapest cloud service that you can run. Cool. Then what you can see over here is that we need to give it some kind of identification name, and then we've got some tags that we can set, either just a single key tag, so with just a value effectively, or you can do a key value pairs that you can set on these instances if you need to identify them somehow. Okay, so this is the basic overview. So just one thing quickly is that you can see over here, this is a very small subset of specific services. The reason is that this is a curated list of services to make it easy to host these specific ones, because once again, based on customer feedback, these seem to be the most popular ones. So if you do have other ones that you feel should be in this, always please reach out to us and ping us and let us know. We love hearing from our customers, and we build what our customers ask us for. So Lightsail, currently this is the console version only. So let's quickly jump in and straight actually do something. And what I'm going to do is I am going to switch to Ireland, because that is, interesting enough, the region with the best latency for me, because I'm based all the way down in Cape Town, for those that are not aware. Quickly, for those that have joined, I do see we've got a couple online. This is supposed to be an interactive session, so if anybody wants to ask any questions as we go along, that is exactly what we are here for. We want to show you how to use these services and what to do with them. Cool.
Exactly.
So,
let me ask you a question. Why would I choose this instead of EC2? This seems very much like EC2 with some fancy software pre-installed. Why? Okay, maybe I'm coming from a different angle as an experienced database user, but why would I use this at all in AWS? Why Lightsail?
No, well, it's a very valid question that we always get that when we have services that overlap. And the short answer is that this is a simplified version of getting a specific virtual machine up and running with some software running on it. I don't have to know about user data scripts to install anything. I don't need to worry about, for example, installing the SSM agent to be able to access this instance. The pricing is also simpler because it's specified down there. And it's it's how can I get started very quickly without any knowledge of AWS effectively? Because this abstracts that away from you.
Fair point. Fair point.
Cool. So what we are going to do is we are quickly going to spin up a Windows desktop. So we're going to pick Ireland. And if we wanted, we could change the availability zone. Now, quickly, availability zones are geographically grouped data centers, and one availability zone consists of one or more data centers. So it's not just that when we have a region, there's a single building with some servers in. That's not redundant. And there's quite a lot of interesting documentation around that if you are interested. Head over to the Cloud Builders library. Let me quickly open that up. If I can spell Cloud Builders library. Let me grab that. There we go. I will post the link in the chat for everybody. But what this is a list of things we've learned when we scale. So that's something that's definitely worthwhile having a read and seeing how what we've learned over time. But basically boiling down is that an AZ is one or more data centers grouped closely enough so they can be seen as a single unit when you look at one AZ, but the AZs themselves are still close enough to allow synchronous operations. So they have between 2 and 3 milliseconds latency between them, sometimes under 2. But basically they're close, but not close enough that if the power goes out or if something goes wrong with the one AZ, you would expect the other one to go down.
A typical example of this, if you would have a place where there's high earthquake activity, AZs would be separated on different tectonic plates. That's one of the things we take into account. So, weirdly enough.
Speaking of, we actually had our first earthquake the last week.
Oh wow!
Yeah, there was one. It was
big.
It was not a big one. It was it's about 2,000 kilometers from Cape Town, I think, or 1,500. It was a 6 point something, I think. So it's in the ocean. So we got a bit of a tremor. We're like, I just thought it was someone either revving a car or a plane of all things flying over. Not really noticed. And then we had one small aftershock. And it's like,
I never experienced an earthquake in my life, so I wouldn't know. Like, I don't even know how that feels.
Well, I had one when I was in Turkey last year for a talk where it's like literally mid-talk is like building shaking. You're like, okay, cool, electricity staying on. Okay, let's continue presenting. Something you have to deal with in presenting. Cool. Yeah. Okay, getting back to what we're doing. So we're going to pick availability zone A, and we want to pick Microsoft Windows. And over here you can see we have got server 2019, 2016, or 2012 R2. Awesome. Wait. Hello, near this. Thank you for joining us on the second stream for the day.
Hey,
and
yes,
I hope I got your name right. Yeah. And yes, New Zealand, Hobbitland.
Hobbitland and Earthquake Land, I guess, right?
So it's honestly,
plates.
Yeah, it's not that I want to be like ignorant, but literally for me, the very few things I know about New Zealand is the Hobbit was filmed there. So I expect the entire countryside to be filled with these little round oars and hobbits. I know it's not that bad. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So what are we going to do? We're going to spin up our Windows 2019 server. You can see some details around it over here. Now, what I can do is I can add a PowerShell launch script to it if I want to customize it when it boots up, for example. So what the script is that if I put PowerShell commands in here, they will execute when this instance comes up. So I could do some automation or connect it to something or whatever I need to if I need to customize a little bit more. But let's go down. So what you can see over here is that when I look at the instances, this pricing is different to the Linux instances because remember, Windows does come with a licensing cost associated with it, which is then added into the monthly bill. So you don't have to do license management, and it is baked into this price. So that's why you do see that they are a bit more expensive. You'll see the values are a little bit different because the bottom tier for Linux had, I think, 512 gigabytes of transfer.
And a small disk, Windows requires at least 30 gigabytes of storage to work properly. I mean, you will not fill out all the 30 gigs, but you need some headroom.
Yeah, cool. So we're going to pick the $8 version over here, and we are going to call it, let's code Windows for now. No hyphens, no spaces. Okay, so I need to do, here we go. First bit of thing that I need to, this is one of this interesting, it might be my browser, I've got some plugins here. So it needs to jump to the end, it seems. Cool. Okay, we're going to call it Let's Code Windows. So now we're going to go ahead and say create instance. And this now, Docker, to continue from a previous question, is why is or how is Lightsail different from EC2? You do not see a VPC. You do not see anything else that that you would normally associate with when you launch an instance.
Yeah. It seems very, very straightforward. Like in this case, you don't have to think about what is a VPC. I don't think even like security groups are mentioned, or have we
Not
seen
yet.
access keys?
Not yet, but we will get
Okay.
to that when we launch a Linux instance.
Okay. So, I mean, I did recommend Lightsail to a few people, and it's only when people were like, hey, I need a server, I need WordPress on AWS. What's the simplest way for me to get it? Lightsail. Don't even think about it. Of course, there's limitations, but I guess we can get to limitations later on in the doc.
So what I did miss is that when we pick Windows over here, we've got that. We've got the identify.
Yeah.
What we can see over it, actually, it's not on this page. Sorry, I'm now misreading my notes. Cool. Is that we didn't talk about access to this instance, and we can get that by go to the Manage tab over here. And now when we look at the instance here, we can see all the details of my instance as it's running. And you can see, I can see the storage over here. There's a specific disk, and I can go ahead and attach more disks if I wanted to. I can see some basic metrics. This will be empty, obviously, because it just launched. Yeah. And what you can see over here is that these instances do use the T family of instances under the hood, which is why we can give them to you at this price point. Now, the T family is a burstable family of instances that we provide, which means that there's a base level of, if you have sustained rate under a certain percentage, then you can run at that percentage the whole time, because the point behind these is that you use them to do small bursts, and the bigger instance you take, the more bursting capability you get as part of that. So what you can see over here is that because we picked the very smallest one, there's going to be very low, and it's about, if you run at 5% CPU the whole time. So this is meant really, if you think this is a tiny instance, one CPU, half a gig of RAM, it's really not meant to carry any big workload. So it'll actually allow you to run and burst at certain times if you do need that. What you can see over here is we don't have any burst capacity, because how this works is, it's not like we say whenever you go over 5%, sorry, throttled. It's you build up CPU credits.
Yeah.
Tell us about CPU credits.
So CPU credits are basically a kind of a way of you earn these thing called CPU credits if you're using less than while you're in the sustainable zone, while you're not highly using your instance. This gives your instance the ability to be cheap, because you only should use it in burstable occasions, like something that has sudden load and then doesn't have load most of the time, makes it cheaper. And also if you run out the credits, you're going to be throttled, unfortunately. But if you have like a small workload that gets peaks from time to time, this is just the best thing. And CPU credits are this arbitrary thing that are being generated to your instance, or actually being credited to your instance if you have little to no utilization. So that's a really great way to keep the EC2 instances as cheap as possible, while still being an actual EC2 instance and not like a shared host or something like that.
Yeah. And what you can see over here is, if you click this little question mark over here, it pops out the side menu. And you can see a lot more information there, including a link to some more details if you are interested in those.
I must say that the Lightsail interface and everything on Lightsail is one of the cleanest interfaces I've seen in a long time. And if you ever wondered what AWS would look like if it was just a web hosting company, mostly like this, because if you ever use like Linode or like, I wouldn't even say DigitalOcean, but like your local VPS host, basically they offer similar things like this, but this is all powered by AWS and all the brunt behind it. And I do like because let's be honest, you get a person who runs a small company and you tell them, oh, just use EC2 to launch your virtual machine or your virtual web server, whatever. And you get them to the EC2 console and they're like, what's a VPC? What is an availability zone? Why do I need to worry about RAM IDs and kernels and architectures? So in this case, I think this is just the perfect way to get started really fast on AWS. And I think we can talk about how to take this to the next level, I think, later on as well.
Yeah, no, we are going to look at that next. So one of the other interesting things here is the networking, because like I said, you don't have to worry about setting up a VPC. And what you can see over here is you can get the actual IP of the instance. And over here, you can see this is the current public IP. And then there's this button that says create static IP, because if you want to point DNS at this instance, you would need to have that pointed an IP, and it's much easier to actually have that happen with a static IP. So let's go ahead and click the button. We're going to select the instance, and we need to give our static IP a name. So let's just call it Windows EIP for Elastic IP 1. We're going to say create that, and there we go. It's now attached to the instance.
Excellent.
That is how easy it is to do it. So now you can see there's a static IP over there is 18 dot something. So if we go back to our console and into our let's code Windows instance, we can see that that is now different.
Okay.
So
very cool. So it's a fixed
yes.
IP address that you will always have.
And
yes. Is there extra cost to that?
No, it is free. Well, caveat.
Okay.
The caveat being is it is, and this is a weird one. It initially confused me very much, which is it is free while you have the IP attached and in use.
Okay. Yeah,
because we want to discourage people from just hoarding IP. So there's a cost associated when you don't attach it to an instance. Yeah,
that's one of the weirdest billing concepts I've ever seen. I know this from EC2 is like, it's free as long as you use it. As soon as you stop using it, you get charged money for it. So
yeah. And just to clarify, by stop using it, we mean detach it and then also release it. Because the reason for this is that there is a limit on the number of IP version 4 internet addresses available. And we are nearing a point where you can't get as many of them easily. Correct. Yeah, so we do have to think about how do we use these. So the next section on networking over here is where we can see actual firewall rules. So over here, you can see that by default, it's got SSH open. It's got port 80 open if we want to host some kind of website on it. And it's got remote desktop access to it, which we'll get in a little bit. And you can see that this one doesn't have any load balancing or extra distribution mechanisms attached to it. But once again, we will get to that. So what we want to do is we want to just go through the rest of these tags or top parts quickly and show you how the different parts work. So snapshots. This is if I do something and I want to create a backup. So you've got two options. I can manually snapshot it by just clicking create snapshot like this. Give it a name, and you'll see it automatically creates it with a timestamp for you over there. Or I can go ahead and set automatic snapshots. But unfortunately, those automatic snapshots are not yet available for Windows. They are only on the Linux instances, as I'll show you in a little bit. So then what we have over here is these are the tags, which we didn't create, so we can ignore that. And then the history tab, which is very, very interesting. So this is where you can see exactly what happened to your instance. And over here, we can see I created the instance at that timestamp, put a past 1. And then 5 minutes later, I attached the static IP to it. So you can see every single thing that we do to the instance and actually see it over here. Now, all of this is great, but the first question we obviously or normally get is, hey, I need to get into the instance to do something. How do I do that? Well, good news. Connect. So, and this is going to be an interesting one. You click connect on RDP, and then it pops up a new window. And yes.
I've not been playing with Windows on Lightsail. I didn't know that like a built-in RDP viewer. Oh, amazing!
Built-in browser-based RDP viewer.
Oh, and this is actually using RDP, right? It's not some.
It's using the RDP. It's using the RDP protocol. I'm not 100% sure exactly how that works in the background, but it uses that protocol for us.
Do you know the port for RDP?
3389.
Hey.
There are certain ports that you always remember.
Yeah. That's the one I kind of like know by heart from a long time ago.
Oh yeah. So what you can see over here is we have got a Windows machine, and it's now going through the normal when it starts up and it detects things what it does want to do. So we can see over here, do I want my PC to be allowable? I'm going to go ahead and say yes, even though this is just on my network. Well, my portion of Lightsail's network. Let me rephrase that. So over here, and we can see click start. Well, if I can click in the right window. Here we go. It's all booting up. This is Windows. Nothing funny about it. So, yeah, we have got a Windows instance up and running with just a few clicks. So, now what I want to show you next is, let's just close that off quickly, is I want to spin up a database, because often what happens is that we need to be able to store our data somewhere. And that often is a database. So let me go back to my Lightsail over here. And you can see that I currently have an instance, but what I can also do is I can go to the database section. So this is once again a simplified version of Amazon RDS. Yes.
Interesting. And does it, like, when you create, I mean, you're going to go through this, but again, does it use something similar to RDS, or is it just another EC2 instance?
It's actually an RDS under the hood, I believe.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah. So what we can see over here is that we pick the version that I want. Those are the versions supported, or Postgres. So let's go with MySQL. Let's pick the default version that they had, 8.0.20. Right. Now what we can see over here is that it tells you it's the most popular open source database in the world and lots of details about it. And what I have over here is I can specify the login credentials. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to call this admin, and we can either create a strong password, or we can specify the password. So let's create a password for us and see what it does. Now we have to choose the database plan, and this is always where it gets interesting. So you can see we can choose between standard, which is a single instance. So what you can see over here is standard plan databases are, let me highlight it first, are available or created in one availability zone only with no redundancy. So this is if you don't worry about the data and you're not concerned about if I have to resolve from a backup and it takes time. For production, once again, this might be good enough. If you've got regular backups, some people don't have high SLAs for the services and things that they're building, it's good. But what you can do is you can put it into high availability mode over here. And what you'll see is as soon as if I click on the right screen, sorry, is it does double the price. The reason for this is that it has got a second copy running that has got replication configured. And in the event that the primary node goes down, it'll actually fail over to that new one without you having to update the DNS or anything, because we reference this database using a DNS entry.
Got it. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, right? But it handles all the high availability stuff for you. It actually creates a cluster, because if you ever had to create a database cluster for yourself, you know how fun that is. So this takes cares of all of that, all of those things for you. Perfect. Yeah, cool. So it basically is RDS, I guess.
Yeah. So we're going to go with standard for now. And what you can see also, once again, you'll see there's a free month, a first month free. So there's a free tier associated with Lightsail as well in terms of things you can play with. So once again, you can see the specs over here of the actual database. This is a gig of RAM, one virtual CPU, and similar as the other ones, you can sort this by vCPUs, memory, storage, transfer, etc. What you need. So we're going to stick with the very basics over here. We're going to give this database a name. And now I know about the dashes. Code DB. There we go. Right. Now I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to add any tags over there, but that's it. So let's go ahead and create the database and see what it does. Well, it should hopefully give me a password of some kind, because I did say generate a password for me. So let's just wait for it. And
creating. I think the password is generated during the creation itself. So at least that's one of the ways it can do it. And
yes. So you have a question.
Is this being run inside of your AWS account, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yes and no. From the perspective of, can I see other people's instances? The answer is no, because if I go to instances and databases, when I click on it, I can only see my instances inside my account. But effectively, this does run under the hood. There are multiple different service accounts. So there are service accounts for Lightsail where resources run, similar to how when Lambda's, an AWS Lambda function executes, that actually the execution engine is sitting outside of your AWS account in some other AWS-controlled AWS account. Because that's one of those interesting things that people might not realize, is that AWS uses AWS.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got services that use our services as well. So we have got, obviously we also have a lot of services that basically are built from the ground up, because it would be weird to try and run EC2 on EC2, because what runs EC2 at the bottom, and you can't have turtles all the way down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So no Stellar running on Azure.
Yes. No. Good troll though. No.
Even weirder.
But there are other large cloud services that do have things running in AWS, which is interesting.
What is that? What is that thing? Is it from? It's not from HashiCorp. It's one of those app hosting. Heroku. I don't know why I confuse it with HashiCorp. I believe Heroku is running some of it on AWS. That's something I've heard. I cannot confirm or deny, but yeah, I think Heroku has something running on it. Yeah. So
yeah, there are a lot of software service companies running on AWS. So
So
Cool.
if I would ask you, does this run on AWS, you would go yes, right?
Wow,
I just
you
printed it
now
out.
have props. Oh wow, I see. Dark guy has props for me.
I have prop for you. So every time you say something, I'm just gonna pull this out.
You need to print out it depends.
It depends. I just put it like
Yeah.
cool.
So Stellar UK is asking if GitHub was backed on S3. I actually don't know offhand.
Me neither. Me neither.
Yeah, we would have to read up on that.
I
Okay,
know GitHub is
but
one
now
of
let's get in.
our customers, but I'm not sure about all those things.
So let's get into something slightly more useful. Let's
Okay.
make use of some of those pre-built blueprints, and we're going to go for Linux, and we are going to select WordPress to start things off. And now over here we can see the details over here, and this is where Dark was asking me about an SSH Keypair. So I'm going to be using the default SSH Keypair for connecting to your instances, but let's change that. Let us go ahead and say create a new one. We just say create, give it a name. Let's code, generate Keypair. And please note this, you can only download this private key once at this point in time. Yeah. If you click away, there's no way to get hold of this key, and you will have to create a new instance. Unlike EC2,
the key is being generated right now, right, in the browser, and that's it. So
yes, yeah. So we download it, and we're going to keep it safe over here, even though we are not going to use it because we have some fun tools available. So over here, we can see it now defaults to that new key pair that I've picked. And what we can see over here is the enable automatic snapshots. And remember when I said that it's not available for Windows, but it is for the Linux version. So I can click that. And this is quite useful. I can pick when I want to have my daily snapshots be taken. And also, we store the last 7 of these for you. So I can pick a time, and I can even select a different time zone. And here's a nice part. It actually selects it picks up what time zone my browser is in and makes that as a selection, so I don't get confused with different time zone, because that is something that is sometimes hard. Trust me, trying to schedule meetings between Sydney, South Africa, and Sydney, Cape Town, and Seattle is interesting. Yes.
Absolutely.
But especially Sydney in the US, because they sometimes it's different dates, but it's
different dates.
So I'm on the 25th and you're on the 26th, but it's the same time when we're talking in real time, which is just like international dateline. It confuses me.
Wait until the times the daylight savings time starts switching now, because US is 2 weeks after Europe for some reason. Oof. And then it's weird. Like at one point we're synced and some
cool. Right, so we are going to pick the very cheap one again, because I want to stay within the free tier and be frugal. And once again, we give it a name. So let's call it Let's Code WordPress, like this. No tags. Boom, create instance. So now what we have to do over here is we wait for this to spin up, and let's quickly have a look. And what over here, you can see some helpful prompts. Because remember, this is a simplified version. This is really to help you get started with very basic setups and things. So you can see over here, cool. We can see over here, for example, we can host the GoDaddy Pro site, manage all of these website dashboards quickly. So there are ways you can actually aggregate multiple different WordPress instance admins into a single place to do that. So this is now one of those where you can do that. Cool. So what we have is, just quickly, there is a link, and I just want to copy the link and share it with everybody if you want the quick start guide for this, which is over here. Let me put it in quickly. And what you can see is when I open up, I just want to show you in the browser what it looks like quickly. This is exactly how you do it. And the important part here is that we want to be able to get our password to interact with WordPress, because as we'll see over here is if I open this up, and we can see over there, we can connect with SSH. But if we go to this IP, and we just do this, it should load. We might be a little bit quick. So yeah, we're a little bit fast. I think it's still busy provisioning, but let's give that. Yeah, it does take a little bit of time. It's fast, but not that fast, it seems. Cool. But what we can do once again is we can launch and connect with SSH. So let's see if our instance is up already.
There's also a browser-based SSH thing. Awesome.
Yep. Also, okay.
It has not started up. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so this does take a little bit of time to get all of this in place. So what I think we can do is, you put a question.
If you log in through this thing, then it doesn't require a key, right, per se, because you're not passing it a key. Oh, excellent. So
yes,
if you lose a key, I guess you can do it like this, but
we can call it no SecOps.
Yeah, no SecOps.
I'm kidding. So
sounds
it's
fun.
one of those, like, one of the ways you can reduce your security footprint in terms of people being able to access things is not to have things that they can access. So, for example, not having an SSH key for an instance means that nobody can get that from you unless they have the correct permissions inside your AWS account. They can't access the server. So
Exactly.
that's actually a great way to make it more secure.
Yeah.
So let's quickly go back to our instances up here. Database, okay, that's still going. The database does take a bit of time because remember, that's quite a lot of things being set up and installed. So this will take a few more seconds. So let's just double check. I'm getting impatient here. Let's refresh. Is it up? Yes,
Yeah.
it is up. Look, awesome. Yay. And then I believe it's
You
WP
can just click the manage. You
admin.
can click the manage thing in the corner. There's actually a little peek. Yeah, but yeah.
Cool. So now we've got the following challenge, which is we want to go in. Now, if I go into this quick start, sorry, over here, we can see that the username is Bitnami. So that's useful, but I don't have a password. Where do I get a password?
Yeah.
Well, let's try connecting with SSH again.
I missed this once. When I first did it, I was like Googling, how do I get my WordPress password on Lightsail? And it was staring me in the face. But yeah, RTF.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So speaking of RTFM, there is this quick start guide. And what you can see over here is cat Bitnami application password. So where'd that go? Over here. If I paste that in, guess what I get? I get a password.
To share
and I
with
can
everybody.
copy it. That's fine. We're going to terminate this instance right now. So hopefully somebody won't be mean enough to go and cause problems for us in these few seconds. Oh, wait, what
You
did
have
I
an
do?
extra space at the end. You have an extra space at the end. So
Oh.
Bitnami, and then just make sure to delete one character. Oh, you
No, I pasted it in. Let's just double check. Where is it? Sorry, over here. Oh, I see what you mean. Copy. Cool. Let's just paste that in again. Make sure.
Ooh.
No, not spelled Bitnami. Wait. Let's just copy and paste. Maybe I'm misspelling Bitnami. Let's follow the quick start guide. Get the default application for your WordPress. Sign into the WordPress site. Click.
Choose the manage button at the right. I'm not sure if that's the same thing. I guess it should be, right?
Let's just double check.
So if you look at the corner on the bottom, manage. Click on that. It takes you to this.
See. It's user.
See.
Yeah. So
system
PHP
access,
admin.
SSH is Bitnami, right? And this
Yeah,
is user.
cool.
So.
Okay, so sorry about that. So let us go back to /wp admin. There we go. User. And then we copy our friendly password again, because I will definitely not remember this. I hope somebody didn't copy and get in before us now, because that would be very awkward. Boom, and we log in, and here we have our brand new WordPress site up and running, easily accessible. Cool.
But you can do all of these things the same. Everything Cobus has done here, you can do it on vanilla EC2 on AWS perfectly. It just takes more effort, right? So especially when it comes to WordPress, there are some pre-provisioned AMIs that do WordPress for you, but trust me, this is way easier than anything.
So remember, this is focused on getting started quickly and how to, get something up and running and usable as quickly as possible with no AWS experience. So now we've got a WordPress site up and running already. And let us just quickly double check if we have got our database up and running, because I need this Linux instance for that for 1 second. Okay, awesome. So let's go ahead and look at our database over here. There's our password. So we can actually show the password and get it. But what I want to show you quickly is that if I look at this endpoint, and if I go back to our instance over here, I can paste this in, not like that, sorry. And if I ping this, we can see that it's got a IP that is private, 172.26.6.168. Oh, sorry, 198. Now, how it works is that when you launch services inside Lightsail, it's launched inside a VPC that you don't control, but everything inside that VPC still has access to the other services inside your VPC. Obviously, it's your little space of the world. It's not like there's one big VPC and everybody else's instances are in there and we can cross-access each other's instances, because that is not secure. Imagine sharing a data center and you've got people with servers right next to you on the same network and you don't know who they are. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
Absolutely. Okay, but you cannot ping a database because, I guess
Yes, because
ICMP
of,
is not open. Yeah.
well, let's see if we can open that up just to check quickly. So we're going to go to networking. And you can see over here in the networking for the database, it's very simple.
Yeah.
We don't have access to anything other than what is configured for us. Because remember, simplified. We want to keep things
Simplified,
simple. We don't, it's defaults. So you can set it into public mode, which exposes the database to the internet. There are some use cases for that, but please read the warning. And by default, it's disabled because that is a security risk. So we're going to leave that. But what we can do now is that if I go to my Linux instance over here, let's just quickly stop that pinging, and I can actually do the following. I can use, keep forgetting that I can't paste like that, sorry, is I'm going to install the Postgres, the Postgres client. It's now me not paying attention. We want the MySQL client, not the Postgres. Is
I think it's
MySQL
just
D?
MySQL. Or MySQL
Yeah,
D.
but that, I think it installs the.
I think MySQL D installs the client as well because I've done this recently on one of my workshops that I set up.
Okay.
Let me open up my GitHub page because I did create a user data script to set up an instance for MySQL. So
Okay.
give me one moment. Building in the clouds, demo, not Route 53, RDS, user data, and the Bastion host has MySQL, just MySQL, without MySQL D, just MySQL.
I do want to disagree with you, but let's quickly double check. Update. So I just want to pull in because this might not have an updated version, which means it doesn't know about the package inside that. So let's just quickly see MySQL client. No. Okay. So that is not right. Okay.
Just install MySQL. It will not set up a database. It will just set up a client. You will have a MySQL
Okay.
client.
Let's do that
to
then.
So
B.
not D, MySQL. Yeah. Okay. It worked on Ubuntu. So no, it actually worked on Amazon Linux. Sorry, it worked on Amazon Linux, and this is
Yes. So this is probably a subset of releases that we have available here. This is very, very interesting, which means that I need to, in the background, quickly spin up a Postgres instance database. So let's quickly go do that. While we are doing this, apologies, I did not look at my notes correctly. Postgres, there we go. Spin it up. Standard, everything. Let's just leave it at that. Give it a name. Okay, cool. Now, while that is spinning up, we can continue to the rest of the fun that we have for you here today. Okay. Okay, it is busy spinning up. So, our WordPress instance is up and running. We've got all the details. I should probably look at changing the password quickly, just because I realized that that is something that some people might actually abuse. So let's go over here quickly and say it'll probably be under settings, users, all users. There we go. This will be me. Edit. And over here, I should have password.
Password.
Yeah. Oh, that's not useful. Okay.
Okay, I hope.
You know what? I'm going to make it hard.
Password 123.
Okay.
Or admin 123. Or what is the most famous password in the world? Well, there's two of them. There's Hunter 2. And if you ever watched the 90s movies, 90 hacker movies, do you remember the password from the movie Hackers?
Yes.
God.
Yes.
The worst password in history. Like
because it's too short.
It's too short.
3 letters. Yeah. Nobody does that. Okay, cool. So I've set the password here with something that only I know. Docker doesn't even know this one, so hopefully nobody else is logged in already and causing me any issues. But yeah, let's just secure that over there. And let's go back to our databases. Let's just see if this Postgres one, unfortunately, it's still spinning up. Okay, that's fine. I'm very curious why we couldn't install the MySQL client over here.
So apparently the MySQL client should exist in Debian, and this is Debian Jessie, or is it Debian
Buster?
Buster. It should exist on Buster as well. Debian. I'm trying to see.
Let's have a look quickly. Yeah.
Default. So there's a default dash. There's a MariaDB client, but you can use the MariaDB client as well. So
okay.
Sudo apt install MariaDB-client. So
Let me
That's
just
the
quickly
one that
double check.
exists. Or you can use the default -MySQL -client. It's available as a buster in a buster
There we go.
package.
This will solve the problem for us. Cool. Thank you for that one. That helps. So just for those who are not aware, MariaDB is a fork of MySQL.
MySQL, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
basically identical when it comes to, at least right now, when it comes to functionality or the client's interaction with it. So the engine is the same.
Cool. And I'm now going to have to wing this. I'm hoping this is right. So we are going to say dash H usually for the host, and I'm going to grab the host of here, which is this. And back over here, let's paste that in.
Yeah.
And then usually
-user,
I would have
-u, you do -u, and then the username,
just you as admin,
and then
normally -p.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's see if this actually works. It does. It's actually similar. Awesome. So let's just show the password. Huh?
Sure.
Oh.
Your link changed.
Oh, changed. Sorry. There we go. I was very, very happy. Okay, cool. Another database password. Oh no, bad security. Do not share these.
But even if you can read this password, you cannot access this password because this password is available solely through this network.
Yes. Yeah.
There we go.
So we have got a connection. So literally, and you can see over here, this is how quick it is to get an instance up with a database up. Now, once again, like I said, these are prepackaged instances, but this means that you can start working and getting some different parts of applications working. So for example, WordPress does have a database. That database is hosted on the same instance as the instance that you are spinning up with.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So let me quickly just think. Yes, I can do Control D. And let's see if I can do another Control D. Yep, there we go. I've been disconnected and we are done. So let's hide that over there. So let's dig into a little bit more details about this database that we have over here. You can see, for example, that it has got a specific port, 3306, which is the default for MySQL and Maria. And down here's an interesting thing, data migration import mode. What is this? Do you know, Darko?
I guess you can import some data from an existing backup of a database, right? Yeah. Because I did see mentioned it during the launch that if you want to import more than 15 gigabytes of data of a database, you should use a larger instance size than the minimum one.
Yes.
So
yes.
Interesting.
So a little bit of background there. So the reason for this is that while the database is importing, obviously it's going to churn the CPU quite a lot. And there's a host of safety mechanisms in place for us for this. And also because bandwidth does cost money when data goes in and out of data centers, and we are charged as AWS for that as well. There's a cost associated with importing data. So when we go into import data mode, it just says, well, let's treat the database a little bit differently, and especially because we've got constraints in place, and this allows us to bypass some of those constraints for a short period of time, but within a reasonable amount, which is why you'll see that the import quantity is less than your total bandwidth allowed, because we have seen people in the past actually abuse this to try and get free data into or out of data centers as well. So currently that is disabled, but you can enable it over here with a lot of details over here. And you can see a couple of caveats. The DB is not available while the settings are applied. And your automated database backups are deleted. This is interesting. The reason is
this takes a while, right? This takes a while.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you can see over here is that there's that bit that Darko mentioned, is that if you need more than 10 gigabytes, please create a larger instance than this one. So no, we don't want to enable that right now.
And I guess the larger instance in this case would be because this is running a smaller instance, which has a smaller network bandwidth as well, because again, it's RDS, and RDS is technically running off of EC2, and there's limitation to the instance sizes and the networking and all this stuff. So
yeah. So here we can see the log and the history. So let's quickly wait for it to get the details. And you can see over here is that I can also, for example, pull additional logs if I want to enable that feature. So general query log as well as slow query log to get those informations.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and like I said, once again, just a couple of clicks to get this up and running. It's super useful. So here we can see the metrics graph over here. We can see there when it spun up, it was a little bit high, and now it's nice and low. And we can also, for example, set alarms to let us know about certain thresholds inside this database. On the networking side, it's only that private and public that we already covered. And then with these snapshots over here, this is always useful because you should have database backups, remember?
Yep.
I can create snapshots, and also I can actually do emergency restores. And what I can do over here is that here I can select the snapshots that I have. So I obviously only have one snapshot available because this is the only one that was done. So I can restore it to a new database should I need to.
Oh wow!
So this is just the, oh crap, something went wrong.
But it's amazing because it does snapshots in like 5-minute increments. So you can basically roll back rewind your data back to like a 5-minute increment resolution. So that's very, very cool. Like I
Yeah.
love the fact that this still has the same power of RDS, has all the benefits of having a good relational database running on top of a service such as RDS, but it makes it so much simpler for these kind of workloads. It's just so great. You know, the KISS approach.
Yeah, no, it's like literally, how can we make this as simple as possible for you? Okay, so this is all great. Now, sometimes you get the question, okay, what do we do after this? We've grown to a point now where we need something a little bit more. Well, let me show you quickly. Let's take this launch, this one, and create a snapshot.
Okay.
And we just create that snapshot quickly. And this will now take a little bit of time to create. It actually does this while the instance is running. So while the snapshot is being created over here, I can go and refresh and it's still running. So it doesn't stop your instance from running. So that's very, very useful. And while that is going, let me quickly jump to the console over there. And we want to go to the EC2 section because there are ways that you can now import your Lightsail instance into EC2 if you go to that point. So we can go over here, EC2. And those not familiar yet with EC2, this is what the actual dashboard looks like. You can see there is a whole lot of new instances, options available over here. There's just this GV over here. So this is EC2. This is where we have lots of different options depending on what it is you want to launch. So let's quickly go down to the AMI section. We'll get to that. And let's just wait for this. This does take a few few minutes to complete.
But so, while we're waiting for this, I want to mention something that I'm not sure if you mentioned it during this chat. That when you deploy an application on Lightsail, the pre-built one like Cobus did here, it's actually using Bitnami, and Bitnami is this application deployment catalog. Basically, it's a ready-to-run application / development environment. It uses this Bitnami framework, I think it's called, or something like that. But it has a wide array of commonly used applications, and it's kind of configured in the best way. So if you use Bitnami anywhere else, you can even use Bitnami on your workstation and on your different cloud vendor or in your data center. Doesn't matter. If you deploy something with Bitnami, if you deploy WordPress with Bitnami on your laptop and in Lightsail, you will have it deployed exactly the same way. So that is a really neat tidbit.
Awesome. Let's just quickly refresh here. Oh, I'm just a little bit too slow or too rushed, whichever we want to time it. Cool. So I've got a snapshot. So now I can open up the snapshot and I can see it's that. Now, here's where it becomes interesting. I can create another instance in here, or I can copy it to another region, or I can export it to EC2. So quickly, just if you've got, let's say you go ahead and create, let's say a WordPress site for whatever reason, and you want to launch it in multiple different regions. You can now literally say, copy it to another region because the snapshot lives in the region where you launched your instance. That's how it works with the snapshot. And I can say export it to the snapshot to EC2. And just remember, when we store things, this is where the per second and per usage model kicks in with AWS. So on the EC2 side, an EBS volume has got a price attached to it in terms of having the volume and running, or just having the volume based on size per month because you're reserving X amount of storage. So we are going to say yes, continue. And over here, it does tell us that this will require additional steps to make it more secure. And we need to acknowledge this because it's a security concern, because EC2 instances, you have to take control of the security groups around an instance, which is the firewall. So this is slightly more in depth. So what we can do over here is we click that. And what we can see now, we can say it's now busy exporting. And this now in the background will go and copy that into the actual snapshot will make a copy of the snapshot. So we can leave that running for a little bit. Now, let's just quickly go back to our instance, because there are a couple of interesting things that we didn't talk about here in detail, which is the load balancer. So we can see over here that it currently doesn't have a load balancer because I've only got one instance. And what I can do is, if I want to, I can add load balancers with a certificate. Now, a load balancer does have a cost, which is $18 a month, because it does require resources in the background to run. So load balancer for those not familiar with them, is a mechanism when I type in the URL for my site, it takes the request and then sends it to one or more different instances in the background.
Right.
So it's able to just redirect it. It does a whole bunch of other things as well, but one of those other things being handling the Ssl termination. So if you've got an HTTP certificate, you would typically install that on the load balancer. And then the load balancer makes a normal HTTP unencrypted call directly to your instance. Now, you can put SSL certificates between the load balancer and the instance as well. But usually how you set things up is the load balancer is the outward-facing portion of your network. So it's in a public subnet. Internet can access the load balancer. Load balancer can access your resource or server or whatever you have over here, but that's in a private subnet. So nobody else could get to it. You can't connect to that private instance from the internet.
So this means you can have actually proper, highly available, reliable workloads running on Lightsail, even though it's a very simple way of doing things. Just because you can have load balancing in highly available databases, it means you can build a proper, well-architected system on Lightsail. It's not just for, oh, let me try something and see if it works. You can have a proper thing going here.
Yeah, cool. No, definitely. Cool. So we can see over here the gears are still churning. We are still exporting over here. That's actually a nice feature, showing you that it's still busy running. I really like this.
I like the interface.
It's
I like
awesome.
Lightsail's interface. It's so intuitive. It's so great. And it's very different than from the rest of AWS, and it's intentional, right? It's intentionally different because it's kind of, even when you click on Lightsail, it takes you to a different console completely. But it is very, very nice. I'm a fan of it.
No, definitely. So what I want to do now is I want to say create a new instance based on this one. And we're just going to leave everything as is for it. Let's go ahead and say create instance, because I want to see how we can get to the point where what other features start coming up when I've got a second copy running. Okay.
Now, having a load balanced WordPress instance by having two WordPress servers like this will not work. Because the WordPress in itself has the database locally, so that does make a lot of sense. But if you do some manual configuration with like just OS based things and then have it deploy multiply, that would be much better. We still don't have like complete workloads deployable through Amazon Lightsail, but it's possible.
Remember, this is focused on, I want to just get a small thing up and running and similar to a VPS, and I know nothing else about Amazon. That is the focus of this service.
Yeah.
So let's quickly have a look over here. So this is where things started getting a little bit interesting. We've spoken about the static IPs already, and I can also create a DNS zone. So let me show you what that is. I can, for example, add a DNS that I already own. So what is one? I think I actually developers.letscode.com is the one that I bought. And then what we see is over here, it's going to ask us for some next steps, which is just create the DNS zone. And let's see what that looks like. Because you can do, like I said, this is the simplified version where you can do everything inside this console. And now we can see over here is that I can see my name service. So I would go back to wherever I registered my DNS or my domain and actually use that to set the name service. Because otherwise I can set DNS records here, but nobody can reach them because they don't know where the name servers are. So I can go ahead and add records here, and we can see A records, text records, CNAME records, etc. So this is how you do easy DNS management. And if we go one back, let's just go back up here again. We were busy creating fun things with the networking. I can also go ahead and create one of those load balancers. So over here, you can see it asks me where the load balancer location is. Now in my case, I definitely want it in Ireland. I can choose between HTTP, and over here you can see I can't use HTTPS because I must have a valid SSL certificate, and I can do that later. And the nice thing here is that the load balancer has a cost, but the SSL certificate does not.
Oh, very cool.
Very
cool.
So that is
free SSL certificates are important, especially how many people try to leverage like Let's Encrypt as like a free way of getting a SSL, but it requires you to constantly renew it, and this just makes it so easier.
Look, I mean, Let's Encrypt has it's come a long way with certbot and some automation steps to easily do it, but you still need a bit of technical know-how how to use it. It's not just as simple as click button go. Yeah. Exactly. So, and you can see also here, like I said, there's the cost of the load balancer. You would just click create load balancer, and you can actually then create the load balancer. Okay. What else do we have over here? Let's quickly see the create distribution. Now, this is also a fun one if you want to distribute your website globally. Oh, is it almost on the hour? Oh wow,
It
it's been an hour. Watch. That sucks. I haven't gotten through everything I wanted, but we will continue.
We,
It's just
we
a
can
little bit
quickly
longer.
mention CDN. We can quickly mention
Yeah.
CDN, or the ability to do content distribution. Right.
Yeah. So let's say you've got a website and you've got a lot of images on that website. What would be nice is if I'm sitting in Australia, or let's say if I'm sitting in Cape Town, and the site hosts in Ireland, that I can get those images from somewhere closer to me. And that's what a CDN does. It allows you to distribute static content as well as some dynamic content, but that's a whole longer discussion. But for now, just let's focus on static content. So for example, your JavaScript files, your images of your site, etc. Those can be distributed globally across this network. And then I can retrieve that image from, let's say, the Cape Town CDN node instead of going all the way up to Ireland. You can imagine that's going to be faster in terms of both latency and bandwidth. So you can actually enable it quite easy. So over here, you can see it asks us for choose your origin. And our origin over here is Oregon East 2. Let's just double check.
The origin is
Ireland. Yeah. Yes, I'm not confusing because I just saw West 2. So where is Ireland? There we go.
There we go.
Yes. My brain is not working. So over here, you can see you just select which one you want. So we can pick the WordPress one. And there it says you have to have a static IP address. So now I can go ahead and say create a static IP address. Yes, create it, create and attach. You can see once again, this is where the simplified version comes in. It says it's simple. It's a couple of clicks. It makes life really easy. It guides you through the right behavior. Now over here, you can see because we're just doing HTTP for now. And here, caching behavior. We can see, cool, best for static content, dynamic content, or best for WordPress. So once again, you can go into custom settings over here if you want. Sorry, let me just select it. I can't. Okay. It actually defaults. That's very interesting. Okay. So it actually defaults to the WordPress settings for you, which is awesome. And you can see all the settings over here, and you can see exactly how it does things. So obviously the cache nothing portion, because WordPress is a dynamic site where you can add blog posts, etc. to it and actually change things. But here you can see lots of different things that we cache, the includes, the content, and you get to the advanced options as well. So depending on how deep you want to go, everything that you could usually have available in CloudFront is in a simplified version available here, and also best for whatever it is that you are launching.
Yep.
And here you can see your distribution plan. Over here you can see the first 50 gigs is free per year, and there is a little caveat down here saying that after 12 months, you will be charged $2.50 for the distribution of your website. So that means you can run a WordPress site for $3.50 plus $2.50. That's $6 a month. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Easy, yeah.
And this makes your site really accessible worldwide, because it makes it much easier to do it like this. Rudix World, should I change the key file to 400 via sudo? I'm having trouble connecting to Lightsail permission denied public key. Yes, if you're using a public key. Yeah.
No. Hold on, let me just pop it on the screen here.
You will not get that error. You will get a different error if you get a bad permission.
It'll tell you that, it'll give this little stars around saying key is not secure enough, please increase the things. So if you're getting a permission denied public key, what that means is you usually have either the wrong key or the wrong username. So always make sure you have the right username. So it might be that if you launch a Bitnami version, that you need to use Bitnami, because if you look at what we had over here, no, that's StreamYard, sorry, there's such connection. So just make sure you've got the right username. That's most likely the error that you have there. Cool. And with that, we are unfortunately out of time, but I do want to leave you with one more link that I'll paste now in the, oopsie, somebody searched my password. I apologize for that now. My database password.
No. I love that it gets into our tutorial, because it looks like R math.
But that's fine. Let's paste it up here. There is a workshop that you can work through if you want to play with this, and I'll paste it inside the chat quickly for you. Let's pop it in here. And what you can see over there is that it's a Lightsail workshop that actually takes you through all the steps: the introduction, deploy, and also scaling steps. So you can work through here, and you can see, click through what it's going to do, create a database, create a load balancer, etc., and walks you through all of these steps. So you can now go do this and play with it on your own at home as well. And with that, what I'm going to do is, let me just quickly wait over here. This AMI should be available here now. There we go. So that AMI that I had previously from my Lightsail instance and I can right click and I can say launch. And now what it'll do is it'll ask me all the configuration options for EC2. So just as a comparison, you can see this is a lot more complex in terms of what you launch, because you've got a lot more power and a lot more configuration. Because unfortunately, the more config options you give someone, the more complex it becomes to know which one to pick. But you have the power. You can pick the simplified version, or you can pick EC2 here as well.
Cool. Well, I guess this is 5 minutes past the hour.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cobus. I did I did play around with Lightsail before. I didn't do CDN before. That's something completely new for me. And I also didn't do load balancing. So thank you for showing this to me.
And just quickly before we say goodbye to everyone, there's one question over here from Nata Hour 10, which is, when running a small website like WordPress, $15 a month for the DB is a bit high. Yes, but remember, when you launch the WordPress version, it's actually included in that $3.50 because the database is running with WordPress on that. When you start looking at this level of database, remember, this gives you a lot more performance, and it's actual database server. It's not just running next to your website. So this is a different type of setup that you are looking at. So what you could do, for example, is have one database instance and have multiple WordPress sites hosting the database on that if you want to have multiple copies running. There are ways to do that. So that's where you would start looking at getting a dedicated database instance.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. And with that, everyone, thank you. Hope you found this useful. And we will see you next week when we have a session on, I believe, if you could give me 2 seconds, static websites. Yes, this was episode 10. Yes, it's creating static websites with AWS Amplify. And that will be my colleague and friend, Marcia Villalba.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you very
cool.
much.
And awesome. Thank you. We are going to end the stream now. And once again, thank you, Darko, for joining me and making this a little bit more entertaining, hopefully, and a little bit more fun, because otherwise I would just rant on my own.
Anytime, Cobus. My pleasure.
Cool. Okay. Anyways, thanks. Cheers,
Bye.
people.
Bye.
Bye.